Okay, good afternoon or morning or evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar on the all-new VersaWorks 6 software. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. If you wouldn't mind just somebody typing into the chat window there, just to let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be great. Let's wait for that to pop up. Yep, brilliant. Okay, so that means the audio is working at least. As this is a live webinar, webinars tend to have a tiny bit of a sort of backlog or a bit of a lag on the connection just because it's live. So please just be a little bit patient. I'll try and be slow whilst we're talking through things so that we can let the screen kind of catch up with what we're doing. You can see I've got the webcam set up so you can see me talking if that helps. I've got a couple of screens up here, so we'll be using those for the presentation. If you do need to change the audio at your end, that might help. Or if you need me to turn up my microphone, just say so and I can do that at my end as well. What we're going to be doing is going through a bit of a presentation which just sort of gives an overview of VersaWorks 6, some of the features, some of the elements, some of the benefits and things like that. So we'll be going through those and then we'll take a look at the software live. So we'll load up the screen and we can go through any questions and things that you have as well. In the chat box that most of you seem to have found, yeah, you're all chatting. Hey Simon, hey guys. Please do use that chat box throughout the webinar. You can chat to each other. I'm also joined by my colleague Peter, who is a presenter as well. You can probably see him up in the top corner of the screen there as well. So Peter's joining us as he is the product specialist for software, I think. I think that sounds about right. I don't know if I can't actually hear you at the minute, Peter. Let me just see if I can change my audio settings a minute. Just a minute. So if we have any additional questions, I should be able to answer everything I think to do with VersaWorks 6. It hasn't been out for that long, but I've been playing around and I know most of the stuff from VersaWorks. But if there are any additional questions, hopefully Peter will be able to jump in. So use the chat window to talk amongst yourselves. If you put a question mark at the end of anything that you type in there, it automatically goes into another Q&A mode line. So basically at the end of the webinar, what I'll be able to do is jump into question and answer mode and we'll answer anything in the chat window that's got a question mark at the end. So hopefully that makes sense. I think you can also, if there's a little cog in the bottom of your chat window, you should be able to raise your hand if you go into that. And I think that's about it. Just a couple more things, I guess. I will be sharing my screen on my desktop. That's when the webinar tends to go slowest, okay, just because of internet connections and because it's live and things. We do have a very good connection here, so it should be okay. But just in case, if it does go slow, just have a little bit of patience, I think. But hopefully you guys have got a good internet connection as well for going through. We'll talk about, as I said, the presentation, where to download the software, that kind of stuff. And we'll also take a look directly at the software itself. So I hope that's all okay with all of you. The other thing is that this webinar will be recorded, so just be aware that it's going to be recorded. We don't have somewhere where the webinars are held online at the moment, but we are working on that. So I said that before on the webinars, but we are working on it. So there will be somewhere in the end online where you can watch them. Any more questions? As I said, pop them into the chat. If not, we'll get started. So, VersaWorks, which is now just called VersaWorks. It used to be called Roland VersaWorks, then it was Roland VersaWorks Dual. Now it is called VersaWorks or VersaWorks 6, because the last versions of VersaWorks Dual had got up to versions 5 point something. So version 6 is the newest version of VersaWorks, and it is a separate bit of software. So what we've done is taken everything from VersaWorks and VersaWorks Dual. It's nice user friendliness, it's easy to use functions, but with some of the deeper nice functions that it has within it, and we've moved on to VersaWorks 6. So as it says on the screen here, we've taken the previous user interface and we've upgraded that to kind of stick with what's fashionable at the moment, I guess, or a bit more of a sort of neutral look to the software. So it does look a little bit less cluttered and looks a little bit smarter. It obviously, as I just said, sort of inherits the established user friendliness. So VersaWorks is by far the easiest bit of software, or easiest RIP software on the market to use. And despite that, it still has some good power behind it and some really interesting features. But it is so easy to use that anybody who uses other RIPs will tell you exactly the same thing. So we've taken exactly the same processes and the layout of the software, and that's been moved into VersaWorks 6. So don't be worried if you're going from VersaWorks or VersaWorks Dual up to VersaWorks 6. It's just the same to use, and it's nice and easy. One of the biggest changes that we're going to be looking at is how we've gone from the native, 32-bit up to a native 64-bit. So we'll look at that in a bit more depth. We'll talk about the Harlequin RIP, which is the engine within the core of VersaWorks 6. We've gone from 2 queue settings up to 5 queue settings, and each of those queues has a hot folder. So we'll talk through the benefits of that. We've got something called printer color matching. There's 2 sort of different formats as to how that can be used. So we'll take a look at that. And we'll take a look at the path for all of the users as to how you can upgrade, where you can get the download links and things. So let's crack on with that. So first of all, I hope you guys can all see the presentation on the screen, by the way, just double checking. So if somebody doesn't mind typing to check that you can see the presentation. At the moment, you should see a screen that says modernized and refreshed UI on the screen, just so that you're all at the same place as me. Just check for somebody to say okay in the chat there. Okay, brilliant, perfect. So as you can see here, we will take a little another look at this in a little bit more depth when we open up the software and use the screen sharing. But as you can see, the menu structure and things remain the same. It's moved around slightly. On the left-hand side, you've got the machines or the devices that you have connected down a panel on the left-hand side, and you've got the ink remaining there. But otherwise, it looks pretty similar in terms of layout, but all of the icons look much cleaner and crisper, a little bit newer, and so do all of the little text boxes and things like that. So as I mentioned, the menu structure is the same, or pretty much the same. There's just a couple of additions, I guess, but it inherits the layout that we're used to from before. Now, one of the biggest bits is that we've moved from a 32-bit to a 64-bit platform. So with 32-bit, you had the limit of roughly 3 GB of RAM. This will be able to use up a lot more depending on your processing system. So if you've got a 64-bit system, you can use a lot more RAM on your device with a 64-bit system. And there's also a feature within the RIP where in VersaWorks Dual, if you were running one of the latest versions, you'll remember that in the preferences, you could move up from up to 1 GB of RAM being used by the software. But in this native 64-bit, you can go up to 3, which is going to dramatically improve things like RIP times and processing power. So this helps by enabling much more complex design files and large design files to go through the process much quicker. So with that 64-bit power behind it, it means that RIP processes are dramatically reduced. For example, today, earlier on, we were printing on our S series, VersaUV S series, which we set up in VersaWorks 6, and we did the same print yesterday on VersaWorks Dual, which was a really large file. And yesterday it took us 20 minutes. Today it took 2 minutes, 3 minutes to rip. It was a really big, complex file. So yeah, using that 64-bit native processing power will be a lot more powerful. You can nest together more than 86 jobs within VersaWorks 6. So that's a huge amount of jobs and that's a huge amount of processing power. But obviously now that we've got the new platform, that is doable. And if you've only got the 32-bit, the 32-bit binary will be installed automatically. So as the presentation says there, we inherit the Harlequin RIP core implemented in VersaWorks Dual. So VersaWorks Dual, the name refers to the platform that the software is built on. So with original VersaWorks, it had one core that both sort of the main processing formats of RIPs, so PDF and PostScript would go through. But we basically in Dual, we had a dual core, meaning that both of the formats went through their native processor. And now with the Harlequin RIP, which was introduced at VersaWorks Dual, that's been carried on because this has the latest sort of processing for both of those formats. It means that they go through their native processor, which gives you the best results, rather than going through a non-native processor. If you remember, throughout VersaWorks, we've always had two queues, a queue A and a queue B. We now have 5 queues introduced in VersaWorks 6. So you've got a queues A, B, C, D, and E, and each of those queues also has a hot folder attached to it. So we'll go through that a little bit more when we open up the software, but basically this is going to reduce your processing time between changing different types of jobs, different materials, different customers, whatever that might mean. So when you're organizing your jobs, this will really help because you've got those additional queues, and you can set up predetermined workflows. Sorry, just as I've seen a couple of things pop up there in the chat. If you guys don't mind sticking a question mark on the end of your questions, I know that's a bit silly, but it means that they'll pop into a question and answer chat window, which I can open up at the end. But we'll just have a quick look at what they say now. So one of them, is there a way to rename the tabs? I need to name them as cut only, print only. Unfortunately not. They are just A, B, C, D, and E. But then what you can do is name presets. It's not as good as being able to name the queue itself. But what you can do is save presets for each individual type of job. And then when you're going to change the queue setting, you can import that preset and it will open up the name of the preset in the queue. So a little bit frustrating that you can't name it in the Windows, but you can import the queue settings. Yeah, apologies that you can't change the names in the actual software, but they are queues A, B, C, D, and E. And the hot folders that go with them as well, which you can set for each queue. So another new feature is printer color matching. And there's two kind of different parts to this. So there's an individual unit or there's multiple unit matching. So with an individual unit, as you can see on the screen, what we're trying to do is maintain color accuracy across the life of the printer at all times. So what you'll do is, as you get your new machine, it's all set up, you can print a reference chart which you can measure the output from. So you need to have a spectrophotometer to be able to do these processes, okay? So you'll create a print and then you'll measure that as a color patch and you will save that file as the reference condition for that machine. So over time, printers get a bit older, the color might shift ever so slightly. So what you can do down the line is then or if you get a new print head, for example, is remeasure the patch and then refer back to the reference patch that you originally read at the beginning. So you'll get the same color tone of the reference condition. So hopefully that little graphic on the screen there explains that a little bit. So you've got your printer, you print a reference chart, a file, you save that file. Down the line then, or if you have any changes within the machine, you can then output and measure the color patch again, but designate the reference file that you've got at the beginning, which should give you the same colors. So that's a really nice feature that's been introduced. A couple of notes on that in the bottom corner here. It says that it's valid for the same ink type and configuration. Obviously, if you're using a different ink type or a different configuration, then that's not going to work. and it needs to be done every designated media type and print quality within VersaWorks. And you can keep multiple reference files. Let's just have a quick look. Sorry, a couple of things coming in on the chat there. So one feature I really miss is in the latest version of VersaWorks is the ability to rearrange the job list manually. Click and drag. Was handy with nesting random jobs together. Any idea if this could be reintroduced? There you go. One feature I really miss is the latest version of VersaWorks is the ability to rearrange the job list. I don't think you've ever been able to rearrange the job list. That's my only thought in VersaWorks. As far as I know, you've never been able to do it. It was handy when nesting random jobs together. In order to randomly nest jobs together, it's completely possible. All you need to do is hold the control key and then just select multiple jobs within the queue and then click on nest. And they will all go together. You don't need to move them around in order in the queue for them to be able to be nested together. We'll take a look at that if you like when we take a look on the screen at the software in a bit. As to whether it could be reintroduced or not, all suggestions that come through to any of the Roland units get fed through back to the software team. So any suggestions are welcome. As to whether they can be introduced or whether they will be introduced, I can't say. But we do like to take that information and feed that back. As I said, I'm joined today by my colleague Peter, who's sitting in on the webinar as well, who's part of the software team for EMEA. So he's listening in as well. I think Gary means when you imported a number of jobs, you used to be able to drag the one that was at the bottom and move it to the second from top. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that you used to be able to do that. It must have been quite a long time ago. I've been using VersaWorks for 7 years and you've never been able to do that. So it must have been before that, I guess. In the last 7 years, you've never been able to drag jobs around. You can drag and drop jobs into the queue, but they'll always go to the bottom. And every time you import a job, they always go to the bottom as well. I guess just a quick point on that whenever you're using VersaWorks, the theory and the aim of your queues is that you keep them as clean as possible. If you keep your queues nice and clean with only the jobs that you need to be working on within the queue, it means your software is going to run quicker because it doesn't have to load those every time. And those queues are meant to be for the jobs that you're working on. If you have loads of jobs, which is why you want to be able to rearrange them because you've got lots in your queue, it's not really the best workflow for the system. A better workflow normally is to try and save those as VersaWorks files and then re-import them as you need to print them, in which case you can only have the jobs that you're working on within your queue. I know that might not be the best solution for everybody, but that in theory seems to be a better workflow in that you've got a saved file with all of the information attached, which we can show you. I can show you in a little bit how to do the saving if you're not sure on that. And you export those into a separate location. Maybe you've got a folder that just has all of your upcoming jobs within it, and then you can bring those in as it happens. So then I guess the dragging around the order shouldn't matter too much. But I understand your point there. Can the trim mark line weight be changed? No, I'm afraid not. Yeah, at least not at the moment. Right, so I hope that answered your questions a little bit there. As I say, what we'll do again is at the end, we'll go into the question and answer mode and we can readdress any of these questions in a little bit more depth if you like. I will try and answer them as they pop up so you don't have to wait until the end, but we'll answer everything at the end again. So, on to the next bit, printer color matching for multiple units. So we just looked at printer matching by creating a print file at the beginning and then using that as a reference throughout the life of your printer to maintain the print quality or the color quality as we're moving forward. Especially if you need to change the print head, for example, that could shift ever so slightly or ink change or whatever it might be. So that's one way of doing it. The next thing that we have is that if you have multiple units that are the same, we can create one reference file and then we can share those with the other units to create consistent color across the units. So, as it says here, compensate color difference across multiple printers. Only the same models can share a reference file. So you would not, for example, be able to take the print from an SG540 and use that on an XR640. They would have to be the same models. The only exceptions are the VG540 and 640. Effectively, they're the same. There's just the 10-inch size difference. And the VS540i and the VS640i. Okay, again, same reason. They're very similar in terms of their setup. It's just the size that's ever so slightly different. So what you would do is output and measure the color patch, and you would designate that as a reference file for the other units so that you get the same print result across different reference units. So you output and measure the special color patch and save it as a reference file. And then across the other devices, you then measure their output, and then you choose the same reference file as you did at the beginning. So as it says again in the bottom corner here, a couple of caveats. Valid for the same ink type and ink configuration, and every print needs to be printed with the same media type and print quality. So I hope that makes sense. A couple of bits that have popped up in the chat again. Let's just jump back there. So Daniel, although you can't rename the tabs, you can name the hot folders to be cut only, print, etc. Yes, good point. You can name the hot folders, and you can also name the presets that you import into the queue settings. So we'll take a look at those. Yeah, but yeah, if you name the hot folders, then I guess that's, you know, it's a lot easier when you're saving your files to put them into the correct folder because they're named correctly. Just another one whilst we're here. I have a printer connected to VersaWorks Dual and VersaWorks 6. I do a lot of nesting in Dual. I can drag the nested job into the cutter queue after the rip has done. In 6, I have to wait until the whole nested job has ripped and printed. Very slow workflow. Okay, I haven't actually done that myself. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. And somebody just saying that the flash tip want to enable. Yeah, apologies. Sometimes, as I said, with these webinars, it can take a little while to get caught up. Again, just a little bit more on that printer color matching across multiple units. So the new feature to reproduce the output color across the same with a reference file. So how to reproduce the color using printer color matching. Set the printing condition of the printer that you would like to register the color as the reference. So you need to choose one of your machines as the reference, and then print a color chart. You measure that color chart again using your spectrophotometer to measure the color of the print and save that as the reference printer data. So the supported color measurement instruments are the X-Rite i1 Pro and the Pro 2, the X-Rite i1 IO, and the X-Rite i1 IS. Oh, we split that up. Not IS. Set the same printing condition as in step 1 in the target printer that you would like to match its printed color with the reference, and then print a color chart. Measure the color of the print and save that as the target printer data. So then, next step, we need to select the reference printer data and the target printer data in the target printer. With processing of the two data, you can reproduce the color that matches the reference color after ripping. So hopefully that makes sense. I haven't actually done this myself yet because we do not have two of the same device here at Roland DG UK at the moment. So as soon as we do, I'll give this a go as well. So again, notes in the bottom corner here, the model, machine size and ink type of the reference printer and the target printer should be the same. And some colors may not be reproduced properly and may not look close to the reference color. I guess it's never going to work 100%, but this is a new feature that I'm quite excited about myself. Okay, a couple of other bits. Some of the obsolescent color matching instruments have been removed, just that they're no longer needed. So the following devices can be used, as we just said, the X-Rite i1 Pro, IO, the i1 IS. You need to calibrate your spectrophotometer before you use it. So spectrophotometers have a small white patch that they use as a reference guide. So you will need to calibrate every time before you do any reading. And there's an option within the media profile, so the media explorer, when you create a new media, so if you're going to be creating your own profiles and things, there was an option in there for where you're doing your feed calibration settings. to enable it for all models, which has been removed. It's not a huge thing for most people, I don't think. You're probably not going to notice that, but that has been removed within the software as well. Okay, so using VersaWorks 6 with the other softwares, with VersaWorks and VersaWorks Dual. So, using VersaWorks 6 with the original Roland VersaWorks, they can be executed and used simultaneously. So if you're using VersaWorks, you can also use VersaWorks 6 on the same device at the same time. It can read job files, special color settings, and media profiles that have been used in Roland VersaWorks. Printed colors will be the same when using the same print settings as in VersaWorks. Okay. Now for VersaWorks Dual. VersaWorks 6 and Roland VersaWorks Dual cannot be run simultaneously. Okay, so if you've got them both installed on one computer, they can both be installed, but they cannot be run at the same time. So you'd have to run one, close it, and then run the other. However, as it says, they can be installed. The job files, special color settings from VersaWorks Dual can be migrated to VersaWorks 6 with a data migration software. Okay, so I'm going to show you the web page that shows you where these options are in a moment. And printed colors will be the same as long as you're using the same print settings that you were using in VersaWorks. So system requirements for the software for VersaWorks 6, they're the same as VersaWorks Dual, except the annotation describing the case of running on 64-bit OS. So operating system, Windows 7, 8.1, 10, 32-bit edition or 64-bit edition, CPU 2 GHz or faster Intel Core Duo recommended, memory 2 GB or more recommended, video card and monitor resolution of 1280 by 1024 or more, free hard disk space required for work. Again, depending on what you're doing, but 40 GB or more recommended. And the hard disk file system NTFS format. As I said, a couple of attention bits there. VersaWorks 6 and Roland VersaWorks Dual cannot be executed simultaneously. VersaWorks 6 and VersaWorks Dual can be installed on the same station. Compatible with RVW Dual color profiles. So the color profiles from one can be used in the other. Equivalent color reproduction of VersaWorks Dual. And job files forward compatibility is ensured. So if you do have job files, if you've saved anything as a RVWD file or an RVW file, you will be able to import those files into VersaWorks 6 as well. A little comparison here just to clarify some of those points again. So we've got Roland VersaWorks Dual, and VersaWorks 6. The RIP core, so as I mentioned earlier, the sort of platform, the core of the software has changed. So we went from Adobe CPSI to Harlequin and Harlequin again with VersaWorks 6. 64-bit, yes. New user interface, yes. Queue settings, 5. Printer matching, yes. New product support, yes. So there will, well, as it just says down here, development will start to discontinue for the older products. So we will be moving forward with VersaWorks 6. And the option to save parameters and things was introduced at VersaWorks Dual as well. And the special color layer generation. So the ability to create white, gloss, or primer or data within the RIP was introduced at VersaWorks Dual, and that's carried on as well. Free upgrade path. So any users using VersaWorks Dual can upgrade to VersaWorks. And the following devices are supported. Okay, so we're looking at the Pro4 XR640, the EJ640, the TrueViz range, all of those, the VersaCam VSI range, the BN20, the RF640, the VersaUV range from the LEJ640, LEC540 and 330, all of the LEF range, and also the TexArt range, as long as they're not the ones that are using ErgoSoft. And for cutters, we're looking at the GR range, GS, and the GX. Okay, hope that all makes sense. Any of the older devices than that, so this is the same as VersaWorks Dual, anything such as a VS, not a VSI, or maybe an original SPV would not be supported in these new softwares. Okay. And that's it for the presentation. So just quickly take a look. I checked we've got some of these questions answered. I had both Dual and 6 installed on my VSI kept disconnecting. I had to delete Windows and reinstall, and now it's fine. I don't know about that one. As long as it was installed properly, it should have been fine, I imagine, unless there was some kind of, I guess, firewall or something in the way. If you've had to reinstall Windows, that's a bit of a pain, but it shouldn't have upset your Windows. The only thing that we have seen is an issue with the, I'm going to forget what it's called now, the Visual C++ configuration. Peter might be able to type in some help on that one. I always forget the configuration part. That sometimes if that's not installed, then VersaWorks 6 might not install properly, so you need to get that installed before you install. But if you uninstall everything to do with VersaWorks 6 and reinstall, you should be okay. Will it work with VS300? There's a question there. No, as I just mentioned, the support goes back as far as VSI. Okay, so not the VS range. I have 5.51 installed. Is there a free upgrade to 6? Yes, yes there is. So we'll go through that now. So if you just bear with me a minute, what we'll do is we'll jump over to sharing my screen. Just a moment. I'm just going to share my desktop with you so you can go onto the website. There we go. So hopefully now you should be able to see a website on my screen. Sorry, somebody's just said there, Simon, you mentioned the data migration page on the website. Yep, I'll show you all that just now. So what we've done now is I've just jumped onto this website, which depending on what region you're in, there's slightly different routes to this website. Okay, so if you're in the UK, for example, I'll show you here, this is the UK website, and we've got a window on the front here that says VersaWorks 6 available now. Okay, if I click on that, it takes me to the VersaWorks 6 software page. At the top here, I've got an overview, I've got the free upgrade option, I've got specifications, FAQs, and the option to book a demo. Okay, if we scroll down, it just talks through some of the features that we've just been looking through. But if I jump onto the free upgrade page, again, it's got a list of the supported devices there. Again, we've got this functions comparison between VersaWorks 6, Dual, and the original VersaWorks. Down here, how to upgrade. So step 1, for the UK, you need to register your information, you agree to the terms, you install VersaWorks 6, and then we've got the ability to transfer VersaWorks Dual settings to VersaWorks 6. Okay, so click here for VersaWorks Dual, and click here for the free upgrade. So click for the free upgrade. So in the UK, you fill out this information on the right hand side to get the link to download VersaWorks 6. Okay, so you just fill out your information there. This is to upgrade from your current product. So you need to put in your product and your serial number, and you will be taken to this website. It is slightly different in different regions, as I said. So in DGA, you've got something similar. And this is in the States. And if you go to their RolandDG.com and go through to the VersaWorks 6 pages, there's an option here that says VersaWorks 6 Upgrade, which is exactly the same thing. Okay. So now we're in here. We've got up here, it says download VersaWorks 6. So download all files and put them in the same folder. What we have are 3 main download files. We've got an installer part 1, part 2, and part 3. Okay, you need to download all 3 of those. There is a little installation guide as well, a PDF, which will help you. But in effect, once you've downloaded all 3 of those downloads, you can then just install using the first part of it, okay, the .exe file. Okay, so you run the installer part 1 to start the installation, and it will go through and do the rest of it for you. As usual, you'll have a little wizard on screen to show you how to do that. Okay, so that's it for the installation. It should be pretty simple. You just need to check. What I would do maybe beforehand is just check Windows is up to date and things, that all your usual settings are in place, and download those 3 files, run the .exe, and it will automatically install the other parts for you. Next, here it says on screen, VersaWorks 6 migration tool for VersaWorks Dual users. So you can upgrade Roland VersaWorks Dual to VersaWorks 6 smoothly with this data migration tool. Again, here is the download link, and you download that. You then need to delete unnecessary print jobs that have been saved in Roland VersaWorks Dual. So what you can do with these print jobs is save them as an RVWD file. Okay, so that will keep all of the settings for you. You then install VersaWorks 6 on your computer, but do not start it yet. You run the migration tool, which you've downloaded, and then you start VersaWorks 6 and confirm that the settings and data from VersaWorks Dual have been successfully migrated. A couple of things to note. You need to confirm that there's enough space available on the hard disk before using the software. Data from Roland VersaWorks is not migrated to VersaWorks 6, just from VersaWorks Dual. And there are some types of data that cannot be migrated. For details, refer to the installation guide. You cannot operate Roland VersaWorks Dual and VersaWorks 6 at the same time. We've mentioned that earlier. And then here we've got a download estimated download time. The bits that don't migrate, things like if you exported all of your if you just try to migrate your jobs within the queue, obviously they're going into a new queue and they're going to take on the queue settings. So they might lose their job settings. Okay, this is why you might want to save them as an RVWD file first and then import them into the software. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, what I'll do is just pause there for a minute and we'll jump back into the chat here just to see what questions have popped up. So you mentioned the data migration page on the website. Yep, there we go. This is it, and this is where you get the download link. Is there any benefit for printer color matching over making a custom profile? Surely a custom profile should give you the exact color you hit before. If you want to rewrite your profiles all the time, yes and no. That you're profiling what the printer is capable of at that point for that media. But it's slightly different in that we're talking about a reference file for the printer's output rather than writing a profile. Writing a profile is always beneficial for the material that you're going to be using. So yes, it is beneficial to have the color matching. It's about changes in your machine, unless you want to rewrite profiles all the time for your different materials, which you can do as well. On nested files, when you go to click rearrange button at the top right of the window, the buttons are far too small and too easy to catch the expand to media width button, which would be a major fail. Okay, I haven't noticed that yet. As I said, we'll jump into the software in a minute, so maybe we could readdress that and just take a look and see what we think. And again, it's a new bit of software, so we can always feed that back. Is there a way to print directly from Corel Draw? You do have print drivers which can go into your software, but I don't understand why you'd want to do that myself. The power of a rip is a very beneficial thing. You get a lot more control over your process, but you do get print drivers, so I think you can. But I'm not actually 100% on that one. Sorry, Simon. Maybe Peter can answer that one whilst we're working away here. I know you can cut directly from Corel. I'm not sure if you can print. I have my screen resolution 2880 by 1800 and have the text, apps, and other items set to 150%. This has always worked nicely, but since VersaWorks 6, it's tiny and I can't use it. I have to change to 250%, which makes VersaWorks readable, but the rest of Windows is too big. Has anyone come across this? I'm not too sure about resolutions, but I know that if you do not have that correct file, the Visual C++ file that comes with should come with the software installed when you update, that it does go to a slightly funny size on the screen. So it might be that so maybe uninstall VersaWorks 6, and then you can update to your Windows, or you can download the Visual C++ file and then reinstall, and it might sort that out. but I'm not 100%. As I said, I haven't had any issues with resolution just yet. But maybe, again, we can take a look at that at the end and see if we've got any answers for you. I'm using MacBook Pro and Parallels. Okay. You can print directly from CorelDRAW over the Windows driver. There we go. Answer for you there, Simon. But again, it's not something I'd recommend. A RIP basically tells your printer how to print. So if you're just sending things, you're not going to have all that much control. Will the AI plugin still work? You mean the Cut Studio? Yes, I'm going to say. I don't know if if Peter will be able to answer that for us as well. So hopefully that makes sense about the installation process and the migration tool that you can download and where you can get it. So all you need to do is go to your nearest Roland business unit's website. So DGA we looked at, DGB, which is UK. Go to the website and then you'll find the VersaWorks 6 software solution on there somewhere, and there should be a download link to upgrade. So now what we'll do is jump into the software. So let me just change my screen size in minutes for you. So hopefully now on your screen you should be able to see VersaWorks 6. So as you can see, it does look a tiny bit different, and mainly that the icons and things have changed. And on the left hand side over here, we've got the devices. So you can see I've got 2 devices that I have installed into VersaWorks 6. So I've got an XR640 and I've got an LEF300, which rather than being above the settings on the left hand side as little tabs, we've got them as little pictures on the left hand side. So that's one difference. And if I want to, I can click a little arrow below the picture of the printer and it brings up the ink status as well. So you've got a little quick visual reference for the ink as to how much ink there is in the machine. Okay, and I've got a little warning symbol next to a few of mine because I'm running low on my XR640, it looks like. And I've also got the LEF300 here as well, okay, which I'm not actually connected to. I disconnected from that printer, but I am connected to the XR640, although I'm not going to send something to print because that's downstairs in our creative center, and I don't want to scare somebody by sending something where I shouldn't have been. Sorry, so a few questions again quickly as they're popping in over here. The different AI color book or swatches book are still available and do work. Okay, sorry, that was Peter answering a question. Yes, yeah, all of the VersaWorks swatches, all of the color charts and things, all exactly the same, all work exactly the same from your design software. Can you rename the Q tabs? Question again, unfortunately not, no. But what we can do is you can name the folders, the hot folders, the input folders for those Qs. So we'll go through that in just a second. So the new 6 can be installed independently of my 5.51. Yes. Also, if I choose to just keep 6, how do I transfer files from one to the other? You can save them as an RVWD file and then import them again. Okay, so you can save in VersaWorks Dual and then you can import them into VersaWorks 6. Sorry, that's not a question. Sorry, Simon talking to himself on there. Yes, the little exclamation mark is just that we're running low on that ink, so it's just telling us that we're running low. And then the exclamation mark next to my XR640 is because I can't print at the moment because the setup is not complete. See how it says next to it there, setup incomplete, okay? And then there's a warning symbol next to my LEF300 because it's not even connected to my network, okay? So, without further ado, let's go through some of the bits and bobs. Now, as you can see, we've got the machines on the left-hand side. Then we've got our print status and RIP status, exactly the same as we've had in previous versions. And we've got the XR640 and the LEF300 listed here. Okay. Now, personally, as my preference, I don't like to have both of my devices in exactly the same windows like this and the same previews on the right hand side. So what you can do, you've always been able to do this, is go into the preferences, So edit preferences, go to multiple printer support and change the layout window settings from show jobs for all printers to show jobs for selected printer only. I prefer that myself because it looks a little bit cleaner, and I've got to just jump between the printers by clicking on the left hand side here. But that's a personal preference. I just find it a little bit neater on the screen, and I tend to not accidentally import jobs into the wrong machine. However, we can switch that back as well by just going back into the multiple printer support, show jobs for all jobs. There we go. Now the queues. Okay, so one of the nice big jump ups that we've got here is the fact that we've got 5 queues. So if I look at my XR640 here, I've got QA, got my QB, and if I flick these little arrows, I'm going to move between my different queues, and it just keeps going round. Okay, so you can flick all the way through. I've actually got most of these jobs imported into my QA at the moment, and I've got the same for my LEF300. In the middle here, you've again got a little preview of the file at the top there. You've got the file attributes, the document information, and the job properties. So something that's changed a very slight bit here is the special items icons. So all of the icons in the software have changed. Okay, everything's sort of much more neutral looking, I guess. And you can see here special items. It's got the little A symbol, which is for the cut, and it's got the A with a dotted line around it for the perforated cut. If we then jump over into our LEF, you can see we've got a box, a blue box, and it says GL within that. That means there's gloss information within that file, and there's a WH for white. So they've replaced the little ink droplets that we used to have before. And so we'll jump into a job. So I've got this little print and cut job here. We can see it's got the cut information here. And again, you've got the same shortcuts and things. You can go to the job settings, which is now just a little cog icon. Okay, you see these icons look much more, a bit smarter, I guess, down the left-hand side. We've still got the same things there: settings, rip, print, nest, save, cancel, clear, and delete. Okay, so I can click on the job settings to open up this job, or I can double-click in the preview in the middle window, or double-click on the name here, just to open up my job settings. So let's just open that up. Now, as you can see, visually, the layout's exactly the same. Okay, the only thing that's different is like the icons, as I mentioned, and that's pretty much it. The only other thing is that when we come to the queue bits, we'll talk through that as well. But everything is exactly the same as it has been. It's just that the icons look a tiny bit different. So one of the things that was mentioned is that the rearrange tiles icon is a little bit smaller. Yeah, I guess it is a tiny bit smaller. I hadn't noticed that before. Again, if I hover over it there, hopefully you can see on the screen, sort of in the top right there, it says rearrange tiles. I'm working on my laptop on one side here, and I've got another screen here, and I tend to work on quite big screens, so it's not too small, but I don't know if that's actually changed in scale at all or not from the other version, but I can see what you mean by you might accidentally press the wrong button. It's the rearrange tiles is next to the align tiles, which just shifts all your jobs back up to the top. So I guess that wouldn't be the end of the world if you did click the wrong one, but yeah, I understand your point there. So looking through here, it looks exactly the same. We jump into the quality again, same options. No changes in here for you. If we jump now into the ink limits or the ink adjustments, so if you hover that color adjustments tab, again we've got the same bit at the top here, but down here we've got the printer color match settings. Okay, now they're not coming up as options for me at the moment. I'm not connected to the device downstairs, but this is the window where you can set the reference printer data and the target printer data, as we just went through in that presentation. Okay, next window. We've got exactly the same settings again, spot colors and special color settings. Marks, again, crop marks, print and cut alignment, same marks that we had before, your trim marks, margin marks, and photover marks, and the print job property label as well. Into the printer settings, we've got the same. Okay, so same options as before, feed calibration, other controls, printer controls, cut settings. input folder. So again, here this is where we set up our input folders or our hot folders for each of our queues, but we don't do it in your job settings. We actually do this within the queue settings. So let's just jump out of here for a second and let's go to edit queue settings at the top there. So what you should be able to see is we've got edit queue settings, and then we've got QA, B, C, and D, and E. So just for example, let's go to QE. Let's open up those job settings. Oh, they've opened up on another window for me. Here you are. Good. So hopefully in the middle now, we can see at the top here it says XR640 QE properties. Now I don't know if you guys know this from VersaWorks Dual or not, but there is the option at the top here to save queue settings. So let's just go through this for a minute. So let's say, for example, I have a role of banner. Okay, generic banner 1 is the profile that I always use for my banner, and I tend to print at high speed, so I'm just going to make those changes here. Yeah, all the other settings are the same. Let's say, for example, whenever I print on my banner, it's normally sign and graphics type work, so I use my sign and display color management preset. I do want to convert any spot colors that come in, so I'm going to select that box as a default as well. Whenever I print onto banners, I always print with margin marks. Okay, so I'm going to add my margin marks here as well. So those are my settings for my banner. Okay, so what I'm going to do at the top right here is I've got the option there to save as. Okay, so let's just bring that window across. So save printing settings file. Okay, so it's saving all of those settings that I just changed for my banner, and I'm going to call this Joe's banner setup. Okay, and we're going to save that. Now, if I want to bring in that those queue settings again, so say for example I've set up QB, or I want to change my QB settings, I can go into QB and then I can go to open, and it opens up the list of all of the different settings that I have. So I've got my default settings, and now I've got Joe's banner, or spelt wrong, Joe's Bannet, but Joe's banner setup as a setting that I can import into my queue. So if I import that, it now says at the top of my queue properties, file name, Joe's banner setup. So I mentioned earlier that you can't actually change the name of the queue, but you can change the name of the presets that you import into those queues. And when you go into the queue properties, you can see it at the top there. So a small saving grace, I guess, there. So where were we? We're looking at our job management folder. So again, at the top here, you've got your input folder for each of your queues. So I'm in my QE at the moment. So if I just hover over that at the top there, oh, it's not bringing me up. So let's just have a look. There's always an input folder installed for you for each of your queues when you install VersaWorks. So on this one, we're in C drive. Let's go to the C drive. We are in program data. So let's go into program data. We're in Roland DG VersaWorks. VersaWorks. Where are we then? So I'm just having a look because this has actually moved. A minute. Printers. LEF or XR, sorry, we're in the XR, aren't we? Printers, XR640, input E. So that's my input folder that's installed for me, but obviously you can create your own anywhere you want on your drive, and you can select that as your input folder. So if I wanted to change this to a different input folder, what I do is select this little drop down box, the little 3 dots at the end, and choose a new folder. Now that folder could be called banner jobs. Okay, my banner jobs folder, which I have on my shared drive with my other colleagues. And every time I want to print a banner job, I just save it into that banner jobs folder, and then I know that it comes into the correct queue within VersaWorks. Obviously, if I've named it, you know, Dave's Party banner, and I look into my queue and I see that it's got banner at the end, I know it's going to be printed as a banner as well. Okay, so this is the same setup as it was before. It's just that you've got the optional cues that you can set up, okay, and you can save and import cue settings at the top there. I hope that all makes sense to all of you. Just going through that small bit. So that's where we're looking at the different cues, so the different cue settings. The only other option that we've got in this edit tab at the top of the software is our printer color match settings. Okay, so that will open up this window where we can choose the reference printer data, target printer data, we can print the chart and we can measure the charts. Okay, so it's a new window that's just been installed for VersaWorks 6 because we've got this new feature to be able to match colors across different machines and life of a printer as well. So you need to have a spectrophotometer to use these facilities. Otherwise, all the menus and things are the same. Color charts are the same. Media Explorer is the same. However, there is one other change at the top here that we can look at. So if we go into the Help section and we go to VersaWorks Online, okay, this opens up a new Help website, okay, where we've got FAQs. And I do believe, if I can find it, that's got the FAQs for VersaWorks on it. Sorry, just jumping around a minute here. So yeah, FAQs about VersaWorks 6 upgrade. So what are the charge, what are the system requirements, which machines are supported and things. And also, if we just jump back into VersaWorks and we go to the Help and we go to Show Help, again, we've got another new website here. And at the top, you can see, or there's icons here, it says basic knowledge of VersaWorks, basic operations, output settings, using spot colors and special colors, operating special printing features, efficient ways to output, performing cutting, managing media information. We've got all these little icons here. And if we click on one, for example, it's going to basic knowledge of VersaWorks, what to check first. So things to check before you're going to be printing. Window layouts. We've got some images here explaining the different layouts of the software. So we've got this really nice little built-in help section here now. So if you do get a little bit stuck or you can't remember something, you can just jump in here and this little sort of help section will show you all about the new features and things as well. So that's a nice little addition as well to the software. As we mentioned before, some of the other bits that we've got built in now are the spot color automatic settings, so the automatic underlay of spot colors. So you can always add special colors, sorry, white, gloss, for example, in your design software, or you can add it within VersaWorks as well. So here you can see I've got a job that says tester with perf cut and crop marks. So this is actually a perf cut file. And if I open this up in my XR, move my job settings back into the main window here. I can then change the quality. So let's say I want to print this onto clear film, okay, and I want to print just white data. So what I've done is just change the quality settings in my media to clear film, and I've gone to standard mode, and I've just chosen white only. Now let's just make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So now what you should be able to see on the screen there is just the cut lines of that artwork. So it doesn't have any of the color data because I've only told it to print white. Now, white ink is shown by a magenta crosshatch within VersaWorks. So you can see there's no magenta crosshatch in that file because there's no white within my design file. So if I jump down to the bottom tab here, this is the special color tab, okay? And at the top, I'm going to generate a special color plate. So if I select that box, what you should see on the right-hand side is a change where now, where the color was within that design file, it now has a magenta crosshatch, showing me that it's going to put white ink where the color was. And the reason it's putting it where the color was is I've got a little option on the top left here where it says generate pattern and it says print area. So it's only putting white ink where there was print data within my file. I've got another option to choose outside of the print area. So you should see on your screen now that that has inverted the selection. So it's putting white ink wherever I don't have color. And I've got the option to choose the entire image, which just fills the file space with white ink as well. So if I choose print area because I want my white ink to be exactly where I've got the color, I've got another couple of options down here. I can choose the density of the ink, and I've got a size correction as well, which is effectively a way of adding a choke or a bleed. So say, for example, I want to choke my white a tiny bit, which means I'm going to bring it inside the color a little bit. All I'm going to do is just click down a little bit here, and I'm going to take it in, let's have a look, 0.2 of a millimeter. Okay. What I'm then going to do is go back to my mode, and I'm actually going to tell it to print white and CMYK. Okay. So it's got the same, so it's going to put the white underneath the color, so to speak. Okay, hope that all makes sense. That's an existing feature. Just thought I'd show you again that that's something that's carried on into VersaWorks 6. So I think that's pretty much it. I've showed you most of the bits and bobs. The webinar I said was going to be about 45 minutes, and we're at an hour. So what we'll do now is jump into Q&A. So if you guys have got any questions, if there's anything you're unsure about, if you want to see something in the software that you haven't seen before, maybe you want to look at the cues again. If you've got any questions for us in terms of VersaWorks in general, or any of the other features, we'll try and answer them for you. So what we'll do is we'll jump into the Q&A mode. So if you've got any questions, just stick a question mark on the end of whatever you type into that box, and we'll have a go at answering those for you now. So, sorry, just looking through some of the questions that have popped up here. Oh, we've got Roland VersaWorks and VersaWorks 6. How can you drag a job into a cutter with that view? With this in single view, you wouldn't be able to, so you'd have to go back into the split view. But it's just personal preference. I like to have it that view, but you'd have to have them in the same view so that you can drag and drop. Simon. There you go. Yep. How can you enable perforated cut? Thanks, Peter. You've been answering in my absence of talking away here as well. Yeah, you've got to enable perforated cut in your design. Then the option to add perforated cut boundaries comes up. So an option might be to just add a tiny bit of data into your file that is perforated spot color, and then you'd be able to add the cut boundary. Finding the design yet. How do we export the saved cue settings to another computer? What folder are they saved in? Don't know actually. I'm sure she went through the program files. I'm not sure if Peter knows that. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm catching up on all the chat here. Program data, Roland VersaWorks, VersaWorks Cubase presets. There you go. I have updated my Pantone swatches using the Pantone Color Manager and importing them into Illustrator. VersaWorks won't read these spot colors, and I need to use old swatches. Is there any way to update the Pantone swatches in VersaWorks? Sorry, let me just reread that again. Okay. I haven't actually updated my Illustrator to the latest version because I was scared that it wasn't going to work. And a colleague had his update not work, so I left it. So I don't know about those new spot colors. I'm not sure if I scroll down if Peter has answered that or not, but I'm not 100% on that. And if not, I'm sure that they will be updated soon. Sorry, Neil, just saying, can we have somebody look into this? Or I assume you're referring back to the spot colors there. Sorry, one from Neil there about dragging and dropping jobs before they were nested. You used to be able to dragged them once they were ripped. Now he's got to wait until they were ripped and print. I haven't done that myself again, but I have heard that is the case. So again, that's something to report back. Is there a downloadable PDF for VersaWorks 6? Are you referring to a PDF of what's going on or how to use it, or I think it would be by region. So Robert, I think you said you were in the States. So if you check with check with DJ, they might have a downloadable PDF. I don't think we have one on our site. We do have the specifications and things on our website, but I don't think that we have a sort of a downloadable PDF of how-to, so to speak. Sorry, just reading some questions here. Let's just pop this as a question. Sorry, just going to mark these as questions, and then we'll ping them up on the screen so we can look at them all together. Makes a bit more sense. Right, let's go back. Q&A, here we go, show questions list. So, is there a downloadable PDF of VersaWorks? I'm not sure, Robert. It depends which type of PDF you're requiring. Can you now set the RIP to replace a spot color for a color created in the RIP every time to send in a file with that spot color in it? Or do you still have to do it manually every time? Sorry, Simon Wood. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Can you now set the RIP to replace a spot color for a color created in the RIP? When you're talking about spot colors, are you talking about special colors, white and gloss, etc., or are you just referring to Pantones, etc.? Every time send over a file with that spot color. If you mean spot color replacement within the spot color settings, it would be the same as it was before. Sorry, just catching up to what I think you're asking here. Yeah, I think you'd have to do that every time. Yes, Simon Hughes, I believe so. You can, once you've got a job with a perf cut in it, let me just double check that. You should then, in the cut settings, be able to add perform perforated cut for image boundaries. Yes. Is there a way to install a printer without having it to check ink consumption and print times? Planning on getting a UV printer, but would like to rip a few jobs to know my costs. No, not for yourselves. We would be able to do that at Roland, Tiago. So if you get in touch with your local offices and send over some files, they'll be able to bring those into VersaWorks 6 and rip them and check the ink costs and the print times for you. But you won't be able to do that yourself, I'm afraid. Let's just ping these bits up onto the screen. So an answer from Peter here on PDF. Install guide, excuse me, a small manual can be downloaded on the download page. Otherwise, there's as well an FAQ on the UK page. So there we go. Hope that answers your question there. No, I don't. Do I know the Baby Shark song? Can I sing it? I don't know. Does it suit me? I don't know it myself, so I'm quite glad. But no, I don't know. I've heard of it, but I don't know it myself. And Deaf to the Baby Shark. There we go. Little response for you there, apparently, Daniel. Sorry, I've been trying to catch up on that chat there while I was talking to you guys and talking out loud. It's a bit weird when you're talking to yourself. So have we answered everything so far already? Have we answered all your queries that have come in? If not, you can always email me. You can call your local Roland offices, obviously. But if you do have any feedback or anything, please do get in touch and let me know. If there's any specific webinars you want for the future, that would be great as well. I will just ping up a survey as well. And if any of you guys could complete that survey, that would be great. Just a few questions there about the webinar. But as I said, if you've got any feedback, please do get back to me. If you want to get in touch with me, I've got a Facebook, a work Facebook. I'm Joe Roland DG on Facebook. There's getting in touch with Roland DG UK on the phone. There are my email address, jwigzel, WIGZELL at rolanddg.com. You can always get in touch, and I can always forward anything today to Peter as well, who's looking after the software side of things for EMEA. Thanks, Peter, for joining us today as well. I know he's been sat there in the background making notes. So thanks for coming along and answering some of the questions as well. Anything else? Any other questions? I'll hang on for a couple of minutes if you like, just in case you've got a few more questions. And if not, hopefully chat to you guys soon and see you soon as well. I haven't planned my next webinar, so if anybody's got any good ideas, I've got a few myself, but we'll book in another one as well. And soon enough, yeah, we'll have more up on the website as well. All right, I'm going to mic out for a minute unless any other questions come in.